The wind swept across the endless plains like a restless ghost. Dust rose in hazy spirals, catching the last gold of the setting sun. On the horizon, the silhouette of a lone ranch house broke the monotony of flat, dry land. Inside, Samuel Kane, a seasoned cowboy with sun-leathered skin and eyes hardened by years of solitude, tended to his chores. Horses whinnied in the corral. The creak of the old wooden fence echoed like a forgotten promise. He had lived his life on this frontier with a simple code: survive, work hard, and leave trouble alone. Trouble, however, had a way of finding him. That evening, as the orange sky darkened into violet, a figure appeared on the ridge, a young Comanche girl, no more than 16, her dress torn, eyes wide with fear. She stumbled toward the ranch, collapsing at the edge of the fence. Samuel's instincts kicked in. He'd seen enough death, enough cruelty. "Come on," he said, his voice low and rough. He lifted her over the fence, brushing dust from her hair. Her gaze met his, a mixture of terror and gratitude. He gave her water, bandaged a cut on her arm, and offered her a corner of his sparse home for the night. The plains seemed peaceful in the dark, but the silence was deceiving. Somewhere beyond the hills, the faint sound of hooves echoed. The plains had eyes, ears and hearts full of vengeance. Samuel felt the weight of his decision press down like the heavy summer air. By morning, he would learn the cost of compassion in a land ruled by fear and pride. As dawn broke, the sound of distant shouting shattered the fragile calm. From the ridge, 70 warriors appeared, led by a stern man whose eyes burned with fury. They encircled the ranch, a tidal wave of dark silhouettes against the rising sun. Samuel grabbed his rifle, his pulse pounding like a war drum. He had a choice: surrender, fight, or try to reason, each path heavy with danger and uncertainty. The girl clutched his arm, her face pale but resolute. He realized then that sheltering her had set events in motion that could either bring death or redemption. His heart ached with the weight of responsibility and, strangely, a protective warmth toward her that he didn't fully understand. The first arrow struck the roof, a sharp reminder that this was no ordinary morning. Dust and tension hung thick in the air. The standoff had begun, and with it, the fragile balance between fear, honor, and survival. The sun had barely crested the horizon when the first shots rang out, sharp and jagged against the empty plains. Samuel Kane crouched behind the corral fence, rifle clutched tightly, sweat burning in his eyes despite the morning chill. The Comanche girl, whose name he had learned was Ayanna, huddled close to the side of the house, small but unflinching. Her dark hair fell over her face, but her eyes, fierce and calculating, followed every movement of the approaching warriors. "Stay low," Samuel muttered, voice rough as gravel. "Don't make a sound." Beyond the fence, 70 warriors fanned out across the plains, moving with the precision of predators. Their leader, a tall man named Taka, Ayanna's father, rode at the front, eyes sharp with a mixture of rage and sorrow. His pride had been wounded, his honor questioned, and now he sought to reclaim it, even if it meant spilling blood. Samuel's hand trembled slightly on the rifle. He had lived decades on this land, had faced rustlers, wildfires, and storms. But this was something different. This was not about survival alone. This was about morality, about protecting the helpless in a world that often punished kindness with violence. The first warrior approached, creeping low behind a dust mound. Samuel fired. The shot echoed across the plains, followed by a grunt and the sudden fall of the figure. The others reacted immediately, flanking left and right, arrows slicing through the air like deadly whispers. Samuel ducked behind the fence again, heart hammering. Ayanna's hand brushed his arm. "They're not all your enemies," she whispered. Her voice, soft yet commanding, carried a weight he hadn't anticipated. "Some of them, they might be reasoned with." He looked at her, realizing she was right. The girl he had sheltered was not just a damsel in distress. She was brave, intelligent, and fearless, and somehow, amidst the chaos, he felt a stir of something he hadn't felt in years. Protectiveness that bordered on tenderness, an unspoken connection forming between them in the crucible of danger. "Stay behind me," he said, his voice firmer this time. "I'll handle this." Hours passed with standoffish silence, punctuated by sporadic gunfire. Dust rose in thick clouds, swirling around the ranch like ghosts of past battles. Samuel moved cautiously, taking stock of his surroundings, each decision carrying the weight of life and death. He realized that survival wasn't just about shooting straight. It was about understanding the people facing you, their motives, their honor, and sometimes their grief. As the sun climbed higher, Taka raised his hand. A voice carried across the plains, deep and commanding. "Samuel Kane, you have sheltered my daughter. Why?" Samuel stepped forward, rifle lowered but still ready. "Because she needed it," he said. "Because you raised her to be proud, and proud people deserve protection, even from the world that seeks to crush them." The warriors murmured amongst themselves, arrows still nocked, but hesitation flickering in their eyes. Samuel noticed some of the younger men exchanging uneasy glances. There was a crack in there. Confidence, a window. Taka's eyes narrowed. He approached slowly, boots crunching against the dry earth. "Your compassion could cost you everything," he said, voice sharp as a blade. "Do you understand what you've done?" "I understand exactly what I've done," Samuel replied. "I saved a life, and I'd do it again." For a tense moment, silence reigned. The only sound was the wind brushing across the plains, carrying the scent of dust, sweat, and gunpowder. Then Ayana stepped forward, courage radiating from her small frame. "Father," she said, voice steady, "he saved me. I'm not a child to be punished for his actions." Taka's gaze softened, if only for a second. A storm of pride and love clashed within him. He had come to punish, to assert dominance. But here was his daughter, speaking truth, demanding honor. The tension didn't dissolve entirely, not yet. But a fragile understanding flickered. Samuel lowered his rifle, though his heart still pounded like a war drum. Trust, he realized, had to be earned, even in the midst of danger. As the day wore on, negotiations began in earnest. Samuel offered a compromise. Ayana would return home, unharmed, but he requested her safe passage, a gesture of goodwill and a promise of no further bloodshed. Taka, his fury tempered by love, considered this carefully. Meanwhile, subtle glances passed between Samuel and Ayana, a silent conversation neither spoke aloud. Danger had a way of sharpening emotions, and beneath the dust and gunfire, something fragile and profound was beginning to bloom. A connection forged in fire and fear, unspoken but undeniable. The sun dipped toward the horizon, casting long shadows across the plains. Horses shifted nervously, the warriors regrouped, and the tension remained thick, like the calm before a storm. Samuel realized that this encounter was only the beginning. The plains were a harsh teacher, loyalty, courage, and love would all be tested in ways he could not yet imagine. He cleaned his rifle, eyes scanning the ridge. Ayana sat nearby, tending to a small fire, her movements graceful yet wary. The world outside was still hostile, unforgiving, but tonight they had survived. And tomorrow would bring choices that could determine life, death and honor in ways no one could foresee.